Buenas and half a day, everyone. The Committee on Education, Self-Determination, and Historic Preservation, Infrastructure, Border Safety, Federal and Foreign Affairs, and Maritime Transportation will now convene this virtual public hearing. Today is Thursday, October 21st, 2021, and it is 5:04 p.m. For the record, and in accordance with the open government law, public notices were sent out via email to all senators, stakeholders, and all main media broadcasting outlets on Wednesday, October 13th, 2021, and the second notice on Monday, October 18th, 2021. Notice of today's hearing was also available on the Guam Legislature's website. Joining me today for this virtual public hearing, thank you to my colleague, Senator Tello Tidegui. Half a day and welcome. Before we proceed with the public hearing, the legislature has general rules of conduct that must be followed. All must abide by the rules of conduct and quality assurance standards. Please keep video on at all times and ensure that you are in a room with little interruptions and adequate lighting, specifically to make sure the participant's face is visible at all times. The host of this hearing will mute participants until called upon by the chair. When called to speak, please ensure that you are unmuted and that you are speaking into the microphone. Members of the committee wishing to speak may indicate via the in-app chat feature. Individuals testifying shall first be recognized by the chair before speaking and shall state their name for record-keeping purposes. The order of questioning will begin with the panel of senators who shall complete their lines of questioning for each respective item on the agenda. Upon completion of the panel's line of questioning, the chair will pose questions. Each member will be allowed to pose a question to an individual testifying for a round and will be provided another round if needed. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Violations of any of these general rules of conduct will result in removal from the hearing by the host. So again, everyone, thank you very much for being here and welcome to this virtual public hearing. Our agenda tonight is as follows. Resolution number 153-36LS, relative to expressing the utmost support of MINA'TRENTAI SAIS na LIHESLATURAN Guåhan and advocating for the passage of HR 928, American Family Act of 2021, introduced by Delegate ROSA DELAURO, Connecticut representative, which seeks to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to make the child tax credit fully refundable, establish an increased child tax credit for young children and for other purposes, followed by Bill number 161-36LS, Committee on Air Transportation, Parks, Tourism, Higher Education, and the Advancement of Women, Youth, and Senior Citizens by request of the Guam Youth Congress, in accordance with 2 GCA Section 7102, an act to add a new Section 12122, 12123 to Chapter 12, Title 17, Guam Code Annotated, relative to requiring that all teachers employed at Guam charter schools be certified by the Guam Commission on Educator Certification and to establishing exemptions for the same. Bill number 160-36LS, Committee on Air Transportation, Parks, Tourism, Higher Education, and the Advancement of Women, Youth, and Senior Citizens by request of the Guam Youth Congress, in accordance with 2 GCA Section 7102, an act to repeal and reenact Article 3 of Chapter 77, Title 21, Guam Code Annotated, relative to adding minimum qualifications to the Guam Historic Preservation Officer position, and to cite this act as the Empowering GHPO Act of 2021. We will begin this virtual public hearing with resolution number 153-36, followed by bill number 161-36, and finish with bill number 160-36. Resolution number 153-36 was introduced by Majority Leader Telena Cruz Nelson. It is a resolution to support the passage of HR 928, also known as the American Family Act of 2021, which seeks to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to make the child tax credit fully refundable, and to establish an increased child tax credit for young children, among other things. On August 17th, 2021, the Internal Revenue Service and the United States Treasury approved Guam for the Child Tax Credit Program, the CTC. With the first tax credit payment issued in July, the U.S. has seen a financial boost to low-income families and single-parent households, and will continue to do so until the end of the year. Once the Guam Department of Revenue and Taxation has completed its logistics planning and implementation of the first installment of the Advanced Child Tax Credit payment, the island will see similar results to the U.S. in terms of financial aid to low-income and single-parent households. I'd like to invite anyone who's here today to testify on resolution number 153 to do so at this time. Please raise your hand if you're here for resolution 153. All right, there's no one here for testimony, but I'd like to give my colleagues a chance to make comments on the resolution. I'd like to recognize Senator Joanne Brown for joining us today. Hafaday and welcome. And we'll begin with Senator Telena.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no questions, but the comments that provide, of course, I'm in support of this resolution. Any opportunity that we can get, reimbursed for something that is federally mandated onto Guam, then by all means, this is the right way to go. Currently, right now, the CTC and the ACT is being paid by the federal government. We received about $93 million currently right now, which half of that is going to be distributed until up to December of this year. The remaining will be then distributed in the year 2022. So this is the help that's needed, that the people of Guam, especially during a time of the pandemic, that's needed, and greatly support this resolution. And thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Telena. Senator Brown.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I also concur with the comments that were made by Senator Tello. I mean, obviously the intent of providing these tax credits is to help our children in our community. And certainly with that, if it's something as federally mandated, certainly any benefits that our people can receive and our parents out there can receive with regards to the caretaking of their children, I'm certainly very supportive of and will be supportive of the resolution. With that, I have no further comment. Thank you again for the opportunity to provide my input.
Siduous Masi, Senator Brown. If there's no one here to testify for resolution number 153-36, we will conclude this part of the hearing and deem resolution number 153-36 duly heard. We will now move on to bill number 161-36. This is an act requiring all teachers employed at Guam Academy Charter Schools, GACs, to be certified by the Guam Commission on Educator Certification. This bill was introduced by the Committee on Air Transportation, Parks, Tourism, Higher Education, and the Advancement of Women, Youth, and Senior Citizens at the request of the Guam Youth Congress. I'd like to invite the main sponsor from the Guam Youth Congress, Representative Al Labang, to give an opening statement.
Thank you, Senator Shelton. Senator Shelton and distinguished members of the 36th Guam Legislature, thank you for introducing this bill on behalf of us. The reasoning why I introduced Bill 161-36 is that I think we need to improve the quality of our education on our island. Decades of research shows that students of certified teachers learn more compared to other teachers who are not certified. Studies have also found that positive impact of having certified teachers is even greater for minority and low-income students. Requiring charter school teachers to be certified is not a new idea because other states within the United States are requiring some form of certification for charter schools, 37 to be exact. Recently, California Governor Gavin Newsom had signed a bill that would require charter school teachers to go through background checks and require teachers to get same credentials as public school teachers. On Guam, I know that we have a shortage of teachers on our island, and I feel that the media have neglected to view some portions of the bill that I want to address. Section 12123 of the bill provides an exemption to the requirement for two reasons. First, if an applicant is pursuing a degree in education, or if there is a shortage of teachers as determined by the Guam Charter School Council. This provision is added for a reason that it will be challenging to fill in vacancies that the school must run, and the school must run. Another provision of the bill that was not discussed is the benefits to both the charter school and the teachers in training. Under the bill, School of Education students may be able to teach while finishing their studies. And I feel as a secondary education student, we can use charter school as a training ground for our next generation of teachers. With this, it benefits the charter school on this island. Furthermore, I feel that teachers in charter schools should receive the same salary and benefit like public school teachers. Both charter school teachers and public school teachers pretty much do the same amount of job. The only difference is that in public school, most of them are certified. With Bill 161, it benefits teachers in our charter school. With COVID-19 continuing to plague our island, learning is very challenging. By having certified teachers, it provides our community and our students assurance that teachers can cope up with the challenges they are facing. The loss of classroom instruction due to the pandemic, which makes it more important for teachers to be certified, because that we have an assurance that they can do the job properly. Additionally, requiring charter school teachers guarantees that students who are English language learners and who are in special needs are under a capable head of a teacher who can provide them the best education as possible. Bill 161 provides a compromise to the teacher shortage in charter schools, and it benefits the students, the teachers, the future teachers, and the school. It is the duty of the government to provide the high quality of education for the future generations of our island. And I feel that no students on Guam should be left behind. And thus, I support the passage of Bill 161-36LS. Thank you, Senator Shelton.
Thank you very much, Representative LeBang. And now we will hear testimony on Bill number 161. We have a long list of individuals who are here to testify. So I will go in the order of the sign-up sheet. And if they are not logged on, then we will move to the next. So first we have Charter Council Chairperson Evangeline Cepeda. Vice Chairperson Jennifer Sanchez. Faye Valencia Ovalis. Lawrence J. Alcairo. Helen Nishihara. Okay. Please state your name for the record and the organization that you are with and your position before you begin.
Helen Nishihara from Island Academy Charter School, Chief Operations Officer. Thank you, Senator Amanda Shelton, Joanne Brown, and Untitled. Thank you for having us here this evening. Originally, when I sent in my testimony, it was a flat out, no, I'm not in support of this bill, but I'm listening to Mr. LeBang, and he has good intentions. And so rather than flat out and say no to the bill, I think it's a good opportunity to have further discussion. But I want to share what Island has been able to do even without this bill. Island was the first public school to obtain accreditation within its first 5 years of existence. The Accreditation Commission for Schools, Western Association of Schools and Colleges, had reviewed our policies our teaching methods, our test scores, and many other things, and granted us the accreditation even though only a small percentage of our teachers were state certified. WASC was able to determine that iLearn was a school that could provide equitable and quality education for our island students. WASC had a team visit the campus, and despite the campus' unfriendly outward appearance, they were very pleased with what they saw happening in the classrooms. What they witnessed for themselves was also supported by data. Island Academy Charter School had 3 consecutive years of statewide assessments and third-party evaluations such as Achieve 3000 and McGraw-Hill diagnostic tests to support the fact that our students were progressing yearly and that scores were at or near national averages. This information was also noted by GDOE Federal Programs Division during 3 consecutive annual consolidated grant workshops. At these workshops, GDOE would display ACT Aspire performances, and in numerous occasions, iLearn was second only to the Catholic schools. Second, iLearn was the only public school to complete 4 quarters of the academic year in school year 2019-2020, whereas all the other schools kind of had to stop on the 3rd quarter because of school closure. In March of 2020, teachers quickly shifted to Google Classroom to finish out the school year. They communicated with parents and independently made their new classroom settings work. Several of them maneuvered their classrooms into Zoom's free platform. They explored several other methods without any guidance or interference from the school administration, and even more so from government regulations. At the end of the year, when we met with our teachers, they all agreed that Zoom was the best method. So we supported their findings and planned for August 2020. We started the new school year on time. Our teachers were ready. These teachers tackled the challenges because they were given the flexibility to do whatever it would take them to complete the job and to get it done. There were no directives or roadmaps from the administration, and thankfully, even none from the government. We were all new at this. The outcome was a strong academic year. A different look, a different feel, but the students were happy, the parents were supportive, and when spring 2020 assessment ACT Aspire came around, the students' academic performance did not reflect the pandemic world that they were going through. The results were very similar to the upward progression our students had demonstrated for the 3 years prior. It should be noted that this took place under the care of several non-state certified instructors. To be exact, all but 2 of our teachers do not have teaching certification. Third, iLearn and other charter schools have been able to continue to educate approximately 2,000 students for almost half the cost of the district school counterpart. This was largely due to the fact that we were able to hire fully capable, highly motivated, extremely innovative, non-certified instructors. iLearn and our charter school colleagues are held to a very high standard. We are scrutinized by the council, the Office of the Public Accountability, the accrediting bodies approved by the council, and we report to the Guam legislature. We are scrutinized by our parents and by our respective school board. One wrong move from a charter school. Of course, we've been given several chances, but we work under the threat of being shut down if we don't do our jobs properly. Our district counterparts don't have this threat, but we do. We find ways to make sure we work, and we've been able to do so for the past 8 years without Bill 16136. I'm taking back my dead set no. I like the discussion. I'm in support too, that if we're going to move with something like 16136, that we need to have comparable wages, then that means a little bit more financial support on our part. But it should be recognized that we've been able to do a lot without Bill 16136. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nishihira from iLearn Academy. Next, we'll move on to Rachel Stake.
Today, my name is Rachel Stake. I am the Chief Academic Officer at iLearn Academy Charter School. And I wanted to say thank you to Senator Amanda Shelton, Senator Telena, and Senator Joanne Brown for giving us this opportunity for this discussion on this platform. I agree very much with Helen and what she said in regards to us writing our testimonies from maybe 2 weeks ago it was, and how the tune has slightly changed to that of being really appreciative of having this sort of discussion in regards to this bill. So I am going to read a little bit of my testimony at this time. Charter schools were originally created for the purpose of providing the students on the island of Guam an alternative program and mode of learning that was not being currently offered within the district public school system. As such, to date, the charter schools on Guam now offer programs ranging from STEM-based to direct instruction to vocational learning, all of which are meeting various student learning needs around the island. The program and the system that we have in place at iLearn is effective, and our test scores show it, just as Helen had provided in her testimony. For iLearn specifically, results from the district-wide assessment taken up every school year since our inception in January 2015 have shown a steady increase in student learning. Notably, even in the midst of a pandemic and a shift to online learning, the students at iLearn did not demonstrate a loss of learning as evidenced in the ACT Aspire results from school year 2020 to 2021. This achievement is very much due to the diligent and hard work of the teachers at iLearn. The teachers and staff we employ are excellent and are trained to carry out the specific programs that we have in place, and they do so in a highly effective manner. While all of them, except for 2, are not certified teachers, the scores that students produce throughout the school year and on the district-wide assessments demonstrate that student learning is taking place. And also, just as importantly, our students are healthy, happy, and are demonstrating a love for learning. Guam, along with the rest of the nation, is suffering from a growing teacher shortage among schools, with the Guam Department of Education also sharing in the struggle of finding certified teachers to place within their own classrooms. Adding another barrier to charter schools will only negatively impact the established system that has already been proven to be effective as it is. While I'm not against certification as a whole, I understand the importance of it. I do believe for charter schools, it would prove to be more effective to allow us the authority to determine the certification process and programs that our teachers need to acquire in order to effectively carry out our charter schools' unique programs and goals. And so, yeah, I'm not against Bill 161-36. I do like the idea that introducing this bill has opened up discussion that needs to take place. I believe that charter schools should be afforded more funding to be able to support this bill, should it pass, to require certifications for our teachers. But yes, I'm thankful for this discussion that's taking place tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Stake. We'll now move on to Rosie Tainatongo. Linda Hernandez Avila.
Half a day, everyone. Senator Shelton, Senator Tadigui, and Senator Brown. My colleagues, I am Linda Hernandez Avila, and I'm the acting CEO/principal at Guåhan Academy Charter School. I present a few points and concerns from GAC teachers and myself in regards to Bill number 161-36, which requires all teachers employed at Guam charter schools to be certified by Guam Commission on Educator Certification. As stated, the legislative findings presented in this bill strongly stress the importance of well-qualified teachers and high-quality teaching that surely closes the achievement gap between economically disadvantaged students and their more affluent peers. Also, in a large survey, it reported that 9 out of 10 Americans believe that the best way to lift student achievement is to ensure a qualified teacher in every classroom. This means that a qualified teacher is one with special training and skills, not just a good general education. With that being said, I agree that everyone wants a qualified teacher to teach our children. Who doesn't? We all hear the saying that our children are our future leaders. that we want them to be able to teach them all that we can so they can be good leaders and learn what is right from wrong. The question I pose to everyone here is that what determines a qualified teacher? In the many years that I've been a school administrator, I had the challenges of teacher shortages, and I had to scramble around to ensure that I either had a substitute or a school aide to continue the teaching in the class. Or, finally, I would be sent a limited term to take over. Are they qualified? Does having a teaching certificate prove that they can teach effectively? No, but these people, I can attest, were effective. They were able to carry out the lessons, have classroom management, and were able to connect with the students for them to learn. At GACS, there are a few teachers who have a teaching certificate and many who don't. But what they do have is the heart, the passion, the care, and the knowledge of how to present the content lessons and ensure that our students are learning. Professional development trainings are ongoing at GACS, so every teacher has opportunities to learn better techniques and skills to improve their craft. And I would like to add on that just last year, GACS received accreditation from Cognia, a 5-year accreditation without our teachers being required to have certification. Research has shown that schools with certification requirements and those without perform similarly in standardized tests. When you compare GDOE, which requires certification by the Guam Commission on Educator Certification, and GACS, which does not, both produce similar results on the ACT Aspire and SBA tests. This clearly shows that having certified teachers is not the key to success. Certification is not a good means of determining an effective and successful teacher if we are basing the gauge of success on how well our students did on the test. I'm not saying that it's not worth having, a certification. I mean, it's great to have certification credentials, but it just doesn't prove that you're a good teacher because you have the credentials. By requiring all charter school teachers to be certified, I feel we will lose our teachers to the more well-paid jobs at GDOE. Then what will happen to our charter school students? Don't they matter? I mean, if this bill becomes a law, those who choose to send their children to charter schools because they want a different program from the public schools, what would happen if all those certified teachers leave for a high-paying job? Would the legislature consider increasing our budget to pay our teachers what they are worth now if they have a teaching certificate? Honorable senators, please seriously think about this before you vote on this bill. Please picture our charter school students left with no teachers to teach them because they were left for higher paying jobs. Please do the right thing. Our students and their parents and their families are counting on all of you. We stress as educators that we stress the importance of having education and credentials and requirements and all this stuff. And I would push for that. I say that to my children that, without an education, things are going to happen for you. You need to push for that. So, coming in again, like some of my colleagues, I was going to say no, but then here I am. There's a conversation going on. Mr. Labang, I appreciate you, presenting it and saying that, yes, let's try to give an incentive to our teachers that if they get certified, then maybe if we get the budget, a higher budget, we can increase their pay. And they can feel that if they love to be at GACS or iLearn or, CFA or wherever, because they know for a fact that they're being looked at as what they are worth. But at the bottom line is that it's the heart. Anybody can have any kind of certification, but if they don't have the heart and the care to want to teach the kids and reach out to them and make them learn, then, it's hard to say that you are a good teacher just because you have a certificate saying that you are qualified. So with that, thank you so much for hearing me. And I hope that we will have more time to collaborate and discuss this further, for the good of everybody and for our students. Suduas Masi.
Suduas Masi, Mrs. Avila. We'll now move to Hendrik Evluck. Al Irgiza. Lou St. Nicholas. Juan Flores.
Thank you, Senator. My name is Juan Flores. I am the principal of the Career Tech High Academy Charter School, Guam's newest charter school. And for the record, I'm also here as a full-time teacher at CTech. I want to just make some comments, but I want to say that I am encouraged, and I think it's commendable that the sponsors of the bill have a committed interest in the educational successes of the students attending Guam's charter schools. The publicly funded charter schools are also no less committed to ensuring that effective teaching and learning takes place in each of the schools. And I have a couple of points about Bill 161. While charter schools are publicly funded, the level of per pupil funding for the charter schools is inconsistent with the per pupil allocation for the Guam Department of Education schools. Funding addresses the compensation for certified teachers in the GDOE schools without addressing the inequity in funding while requiring the same level of certification. It is unfair to the charter schools which identify and provide high levels of teaching and learning within the funding limitations. If charter schools are required to hire only certified teachers, they will be challenged to meet the compensation levels reached by the GDOE schools for certified teachers. And I know that's a repetition of what has been said before. Secondly, each charter school addresses a specific focus on education that is not adequately addressed in certification requirements. Guåhan Academy focuses on direct instruction. Science is fun and awesome focuses on students' strong interests in STEM-related fields. iLearn focuses on the use of technology to provide and address instructional materials. And Career Tech High focuses on the effective integration of academic subjects with career tech areas. The charter schools are responsible for ensuring that the teachers have the knowledge and skills to meet the challenges of their respective schools and address the needs of their students. It is incumbent on the schools to provide resources, guidance, and professional development that help any of their teachers in ways that are not adequately addressed by certification requirements. The sizes and organizational structures of charter schools make it possible to identify and address students' learning needs within the context of the school's focus above and beyond requirements called for in certification requirements. The introduction to Bill 161 addresses two areas the charter schools take very seriously. One is the research on the correlation between teachers' academic backgrounds and their capacity to teach students effectively. Without certification requirements, charter schools can and do choose to employ teachers with appropriate coursework and professional experiences that best meet the needs of the students. Like other non-GDOE schools that do not require teacher certification, the schools can take advantage of the teachers' content, knowledge, and experiences that bring learning to life in the classrooms and help teachers extend their enthusiasm for their content areas and their own enthusiasm for extended learning to their students. The second item in the introduction is the relationship between teacher certification and student achievement. Does GDOE or the legislature have documented evidence that the charter school students' test scores have been below the levels of similar students in DOE schools? When we look at students in other non-GDOE schools, is there evidence that the lack of teacher certification requirements in those schools leads to students achieving at levels lower than the students in GDOE schools? If there is no evidence, is there a reason for the certification requirement when the research presented does not apply to schools with uncertified teachers on Guam. Again, if without certification requirements, charter schools and other non-GDOE schools have met the obligation to ensure that students are learning at acceptable levels when compared to GDOE students, does Bill 161 as it stands serve a useful purpose? While charter schools are established and maintained to provide students with and families with choices for a publicly funded education, they also allow choices for the schools to identify ways in which students' learning needs are best met. Families can choose to terminate enrollment in charter schools if they are dissatisfied with the quality of teaching and learning. Charter schools that exist and thrive earn the enrollments of the students, even without the certification of the teachers. The school should continue to function with the context of family satisfaction with the education received by their students. Thank you for the opportunity to respond to the consideration of Bill 161. I hope a meaningful discussion with the charter school communities will continue to lead to more effective teaching and learning in these schools. Si Zeus Masi.
Zeus Masi, Mr. Flores. We'll now move to Jane De Guzman. Grace Reyes-Lujan.
Hi, Hafide. I am the administrative assistant for the Guam Academy Charter School Council Board, and I do oppose this bill. As a parent of students that do attend GDOE, I see no difference. I feel that the charter school should go ahead and proceed without certifying their teachers, because I compare the charter schools to the private schools, and private schools, they don't have teachers that are certified. I think anyone can teach as long as you have the love and the passion. And I feel that I used to be a teacher's assistant for DOE, and I wasn't certified. I went in blindsided and I assisted as much as I can. And I went in with no degree, no certification. I mean, even to the point they wanted me to take care of one-to-one children, and I didn't even have that certification. I really feel that the charter school is doing good, and I support them. And I feel that if they did not want to be in that position of not being a staff member that can get that high pay, then at least, they have these options to go to a certified position. But they love what they do, and they're there to support, and they've been doing it for years. So I am against it. And, I understand that Representative Labang is making his point. But I hope that, there's more future testimonies and that we won't proceed with this Bill 161. Thank you, Senators.
Thank you very much, Ms. Grace Reyes-Lujan. We'll move on now to Mary Grace Ed Rosa. Roberta Abade.
Thank you, Vice Speaker Amanda Sheldon, Senator Tagui, and Senator Brown. My name is Roberta Abadai, and I'm the current chairperson for the Guam Commission for Educator Certification. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in a hearing on Bill number 161-36 concerning the certification of Guam charter school teachers by Guam Commission for Educator Certification. When the bill came to our attention on July 13, 2021, I immediately sent out a copy of the bill for the review of the commissioners. At that time, I requested a review and comments from the commissioners. On July 15, 2021, I received a summary of the bill and comments from a member of the commission who was able to take time during his vacation travels to review and comment on the bill. His review notes indicate the following, quote, 1, teachers applying, teaching at any academy charter schools on Guam must be certified by GCEC. 2, Those who are not certified can be hired. However, they must take necessary actions at their own expense to get a teaching certificate and be certified by the GCEC in a span of 3 years or be terminated, end quote. With the discussions on the bill in the media focusing on the private schools and charter schools, I forwarded an interview from KUAM on July 25th, 2021 to all the commissioners for their review. The commissioners continue to research on the public opinion and personal experiences of certification and their experiences in public, private, and charter schools. Commissioners shared their ideas in order to determine the position of the GCEC on the bill. In our regularly scheduled meeting on August 16th, 2021, I shared the process with the commissioners during the chairperson's report. Discussion on the bill ensued and a final decision was made and included in the minutes from that meeting. The minutes state the following, quote, "Thank you for the review of the legislative bill 161-36 that all charter school teachers will have a 5-year period to certify. The media has shared mixed feelings from the charter schools. The bill provided excellent research and benefits of certification. The responsibility of hiring and encouraging certification is on the charter schools. After a review of the bill, there is no comment needed from the GCEC on the bill. GCEC is always ready to certify those who are qualified," end quote. Certification is recognized by the State Board of the professional status of the individual educator. While the Guam Commission for Educator Certification strongly supports certification for all teachers, we recognize the varied missions of each entity, namely private and charter schools. Sometimes teachers begin their careers at these schools while working on the certification requirements. Sometimes teachers move to these schools after retiring from the public system. As with some of the parochial private schools, teachers may see teaching as part of their service and ministry. Sometimes teachers feel more comfortable in the small school settings that these schools provide, and the teachers do not go through the process of certification since it has not been a requirement for employment. Comments in the media reports have stated that the cost of certification is too high. The cost of Guam certification is very reasonable at $10 a year for the different certification levels. However, the schools may feel that the additional cost of salary in hiring or competing with the salary of the regular public school system may hamper their ability to maintain a supply of teachers. The bill does indicate that the charter schools are publicly funded schools. If teachers in charter schools are not certified, then the pay scale should be lower than the regular pay scale for public school teachers. Having to pay certified teachers at the regular pay scale may require additional funding from the legislature. The GCEC stands ready to provide workshops, accept applications, and provide certificates to those educators who are qualified. Understanding the many aspects of this bill and our personal interest in the certifying of teachers, the Guam Commission for Educator Certification will support any decision made by the legislature on Bill number 161-36. Sidros Maase, thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to Enrique Baza III.
Thank you, senators, for allowing all of us charter school professionals to have this opportunity to speak. And thank you, Mr. Labang, for participating in the political process, especially your colleagues in the Youth Congress. But I would like to voice my opposition towards this bill. Myself, this is my 5th year teaching. I'm a teacher at the Guåhan Academy Charter School under Mrs. Linda Hernandez Avila. I spent my first 3 years teaching at Southern High School, which I earned my high school diploma from. Coming home to Guam, trying to find a profession with my college degree. At that point in time, it was hard to find a job. So I decided to take my communication skills to DOE. And one of the openings that were there in overwhelmingly was a teacher. So I decided to apply for teaching. As my first year went by, I stepped in there uncertified, emergency hire, with all the duties and responsibilities of a fully certified teacher. Rosters of 30 kids plus sometimes in the public school setting at Southern High School. I performed my duties to the best of my abilities. I even got very involved with the school. I coach 2 sports. I'm the head coach for the boys and girls wrestling team at Southern High School, and I'm also the head coach for the boys rugby team at Southern High School. And I did that for all 3 years. For 1 year, I even coached football. So for 1 school year, I coached 3 sports, 3 quarters. Also at this time, life had hit me. I became a father. One of the many downsides to being uncertified emergency hire at DOE is the lack of compensation, might I say. Understood, certification is important, but given the responsibilities of a fully certified teacher as not certified, I feel that my colleagues and I who were not certified, and I can assure you there's dozens at every public school, that it's not fair. We're talking about no holidays pay, no summer pay. That means that when there's no school, there's no pay. It made it extremely difficult for me. And when my daughter was born, I was faced with the decision, should I go to work and get paid? Or should I spend the first 20 days of my daughter's life with her? It was a hard decision. It wasn't a one-night decision, but I decided to be with my daughter. So I took those 2 pay periods with no pay, and I took it, for better or worse, for a lack of terminology, I would say at this moment, I took it on the chin. And as the pandemic had hit, we were compensated for the time we were in school, but once summer came, that compensation was over. At a recommendation of a former colleague, a mentor of mine, he was a former teacher of mine who became a colleague at Southern High. He referred me to the Guåhan Academy Charter School. So I thought I would just apply, see if I can take my talents. Maybe they would offer me a better salary, because at $17,000 a year as an uncertified teacher, that's nowhere near manageable, especially for a new father. So as I went to my interview, I was offered the position, and I was offered summer vacation pay, holiday pay, still at not the same rate as a beginning certified teacher, but it put me in a better position to provide for my family. I feel that I've given a lot of myself to my children, either in academics or athletics, and I plan on doing that for the rest of my life. At this point in time, I'm very opposed to 161 because of the lack of addressing the issue at hand. For all 3 years I was at Southern High, I did inquire about certification, if there's any programs that I might be able to, but every time I followed up, it was always full, understandably, because there are so many uncertified teachers. And because of the teacher shortage, DOE is even willing to take uncertified teachers. So when I was given the opportunity to work at a charter school, I took it because, quite frankly, it just wasn't fair. Understandably, a teacher, as an educator, we are required to meet a certain standard, but certification doesn't address every standard. I've had many colleagues at public schools who walked in with me certified that walked out a month, 2 weeks after the school year started. So being certified doesn't address classroom management. It doesn't address the other aspects of guiding adolescents into becoming contributing member of society. And one of the reasons why I became a teacher is because of some of those teachers that helped me, guided me to becoming a contributing member of society. So thank you again, senators. Thank you, Mr. Labang. I appreciate your participation in the political process, especially with your colleagues being in the Youth Congress. But I am opposed to this bill. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Mr. Baza. I see Mary Grace Edrosa back on. Do you want to provide testimony?
Good evening, or well, almost evening, senators, other members of the charter schools. I'm actually from Department of Administration. So I'm here not to provide support or opposition to the bill. I'm just here to listen in to what everyone else has shared or has testified. My concern more is what others are bringing up to the hearing about, if they will have the requirement to certify teachers to these charter school, is what is the financial aspect of this. So I'm just here to just listen in and see what the impact in regards to the budgetary aspect of this bill. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much, Ms. Edrosa. I'd like to now recognize Anthony Sunga.
Hapaday, Honorable Senator Shelton, Senator Brown, Senator Taitagui, and members of the committee. Welcome also Representative Labang. Thank you for allowing me this moment to provide testimony on Bill 16136. My name is Dr. Anthony Sunga, and I am the Vice Chairman for the CIFA LACS Board of Trustees, and I am also representing CIFA Learning Academy Charter School. And I provide testimony against Bill 161. As you've heard my colleagues say, charter schools were created for one main reason, and that is to provide an alternative educational pathway for our students on Guam. This bill focuses on our teaching faculty and questions their ability because they are not certified or may not be certified. But that doesn't mean our teachers do not have the qualifications and special trainings to provide high-level education specific to implement our STEAM program or the programs you find at all our other charter schools. As you have heard from my colleagues from the charter schools, that the test results from our students show that our kids were excelling in the school assessments above other public schools. What is not measured also is, but very important, is the experiences that our kids are receiving at the school. With the engagement the kids are getting through our teachers, the kids are excited to come to school and continue to engage more, as we have seen. So it is evident that what we are doing, what our teachers are doing, is working for our program. To require our teachers to get certified by an organization that does not evaluate the needs of our program would be a disservice to our teachers, but also to our students. As a charter school, we are responsible to ensure a level of standard that goes beyond what is expected from any educational institute. We hear this from our parents, and more importantly, we see it in the results from our students' academic performance. So as a charter school, we have a responsibility to the public. And through the eyes of the Charter Council and the Guam legislature, we are under that microscope to succeed in what we propose to accomplish. And from the testimony you have heard so far from my colleagues, we are succeeding and thriving with a smaller budget to work with. My teachers at CIFA and the other charter schools may not have the certification, but they have the passion. They have the dedication and drive to provide the best education for their students. As a school, we support teachers' education moving forward, as well as the commitment to provide professional development specific to our STEAM program. So we find that intent to make it work. So I ask the members of the legislature to continue to support the intent of the charter school law and allow for an alternative for our children of Guam, and also allow us to do what we as a charter school know works for our school and our children. And I thank you again for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sunga. If there's anyone else here to testify for Bill number 161, please raise your hand if I missed anyone. All right, thank you very much to everyone who joined us today for Bill number 161. We will now begin questions from the panel of senators. I ask that all of the folks who were here to testify, if you can please stay on and keep your camera on in case there's a question for you. We'll begin with Senator Titlegy.
Sujus Masi, Madam Chair, and thank you for everyone who's here today to testify. I'm pretty sure we're going to get a list in the committee report of those names that were called out, but unfortunately did not say they were for or against the legislation. But I greatly appreciate Grace Rojas Lujan as a parent coming forward and testifying. And of course, the teacher, Mr. Baza, for you also being here and sharing your story with us. It was very enlightening, and we understand a little bit more as to why teachers move toward charter schools to decide to teach there. And it's more along the line of, what you're catering to what's in the best interest of you. I mean, and that means that you're happy and your children are happy. They say happy life, happy wife, kind of thing like that. So of course, accommodating to teachers, to keep them in good spirits resonates to our children. And I believe that the charter schools have done just that, to try and cater to their teachers, to provide that excellent care and learning experience from a teacher who's satisfied at the charter schools. I mean, it's obvious they produce great testing scores. It's been proven countless times. And I have to say, I've been a great fan of the charter schools. And I see they're continuing to thrive. I'm seeing that more students going from the private schools where parents can afford their children to go there actually prefer to take them into the charter schools now from private schools. So it just, I appreciate Mr. Labang, all you've done in research. In fact, the recommendation on the amendment that you made within here to accommodate when there's a shortage is commendable on your end. But I have to ask you, did you have an opportunity to speak to any of the charter schools or teachers from charter schools when you were doing your research on this?
Sorry, Titlegy, I was not able to. I didn't have a chance to.
Okay, well, sometimes it's good to know what the status is going to be when you end up at a public hearing on legislation. And but I see you did some recommendations in your testimony was admirable, but the concern here too comes basically with funding. Funding is going to be a great issue. Like most legislation that comes out, it usually costs some kind of funding, to doing that. And if legislation is going to come out, you have to also find out where you're going to get the money to accommodate this. But other than that, I also want to congratulate iLearn Academy for receiving your accreditation, 5 years existence in the accreditation commission for the school from Western Association of Colleges. This is a great stride, and congratulate you on that. As well as Juan Flores, your comments with regards to charter schools exist and thrive on the enrollment of their students. That was so well put. That is a testament of how well these charter schools are doing. We're finding every year as we appropriate funding for charter schools, which is very minimal compared to what Guam Department of Education receives per child, but then again, they have a lot of requirements under their belt that they have to comply to, for that hefty price tag. But it's so true. Every year I'm seeing more and more students going into charter schools. They prefer it. So I'm going to take in consideration all the testimonies. Roberta, I appreciate your testimony being sent. I sent you my email address, so if you can send it to me, because it's very important to assess my decision on this legislation. But one thing I will walk away with is the collaboration of everyone here wanting to sit down and discuss this further. That's very important. Thank you, Anthony Songan, for your testimony as well. Appreciate it. And Rachel as well. So to everyone, good evening and be safe out there. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to make comments and ask a question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Titlegy. Senator Brown.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I don't have any questions for anyone that provided testimony, and primarily because I really think that each and every position that has been brought forth, they were able to do so with clarity and as to why they've taken the position that they have. And I certainly concur. I appreciate the efforts of Mr. Labang and the members of the Guam Youth Congress in bringing this issue forward for discussion. I mean, many years ago, I was once a member of the Guam Youth Congress. I served 2 terms as a youth speaker. So I really appreciate his advocacy and that of the Youth Congress members of bringing this issue forth. Back in my lifetime in the Guam legislature, this whole discussion of creating charter schools was initiated and put into law. And one of the main reasons that I looked and supported this initiative is primarily because I felt we needed to structure things differently. And I myself, I am a 9-year product of public school on Guam, from kindergarten to the 9th grade. Back then we still had junior high schools. And I've only spent 3 years in private school. But the whole motivation, the primary motivation, certainly for my previous support on the issue of creating charter schools, was to do something different. How could we be more creative, to borrow the repeated words of Governor Joseph Hatta, how can we be more creative and innovative to produce quality students in our educational system? DOE certainly does provide a very important role in this community, and they do educate the bulk of our children. But we also have a desire to want to see how can we do this effectively and how could we do it differently in a way that's not in the existing structure. There's our, plus and minuses, and it's a tremendous challenge to carry on the responsibility of educating our children, particularly at a time when not all our children have the support, particularly in their homes, with regards to supporting their education. We know we have children that we don't even know if outside of the school system, are they even receiving, basic meals and what they need to subsist and exist, least of all thrive with regards to the educational opportunities that no doubt we would like to have our children have. But I would have a concern with this bill if what we're doing and what ultimately becomes the outcome of this is if we are simply trying to emulate the Department of Education. That's not the reason I supported the creation of charter schools. The fact that the charter schools are able to do what they do with less money, to me, is a tremendous plus, because we live in a world of illusion that, we simply are going to come to the legislature and appropriate as if we have a printer in the back room and we're simply printing money for every issue, and that's going to make all the problems go away because we're always going to be asking for more money. I think we're very fortunate to even live in an island as we do, and even live to the level of living standard that we have, considering how little we actually produce for these funds to be generated here. So that's the concern I would have, and that's the reservation I would have in supporting this bill. I mean, I look at the references here, a number of these references and studies, are over 30 years old, and they're not here. And unless I can see evidence that shows our charter schools are not performing and not ensuring that the students that are going through their system are dropping in terms of their performance, and their test scores, then that would be a reason for me to pause and reevaluate. But I think until that happens, and I hope it never does, I would be very concerned about, again, as I mentioned at the very beginning, trying to make a facsimile of Department of Education and start putting that imprint in the charter schools. I think the ability and flexibility to do what they do, if they can come up with a more creative way to do it, and provide that opportunity, they can provide an environment that also allows our teachers there to thrive, by all means. If they can meet those standards, I'm very supportive of that. We've seen recently, Madam Chair, with the Department of Education, because it is so large, it has such a big mandate, and it is as big as it is. It's our largest single department in the government of Guam. We have thousands of employees, from teachers, administrators, and all the other support staff that come into operating our education system. It's shown an inability of Department of Education to move and be as flexible and responsive as it needs to be. You know, I have a child that is in a private Catholic school, and that's my choice as a parent, because there are benefits that I see my child will gain from being in that type of environment, and I pay the tuition to do that. But that doesn't mean to me that because my child's in a private school, I have teachers that are any less capable or competent. I myself, having been a student, I'm very impressed with the quality of teachers that my child has. And I certainly wouldn't want to see that structure changed by the government, because they're doing what they need to do, and they're doing it very successfully. And we've seen time and time again how private schools have been able to do that. And so far, I don't have a reason not to support the charter schools. The fact that they're doing it for less money, I think that brings a bigger question as to why DOE is not as effective in educating and providing that type of environment. And the quality ultimately is to have these children to be educated and to be able to give them a good start in their life. Charter schools are able to do that for less money. I'm all for it. I don't want to constrain them, you know, unless they're going off the deep end, but I haven't seen that. I don't want to constrain them from their ability to be creative to do that, because we're seeing the benefits. And that's what I want to see. As a matter of fact, in time, I'm wondering, and I'm very curious, and I would be hopeful to see perhaps the Department of Education change its structure and start emulating the type of formats and educational opportunities that are being provided in the charter schools. Because if the objective is to ensure that our children have a good start in life, that they're educated to where they need to be for that, then that's what I want to see. I'm not so much into things have to be a certain way, and we're going to keep it that way because it's always been that way, because the bigger the institution, as I mentioned, the inability to adjust and shift. We have children right now in public school that have not had a regular, consistent education. A number of the private schools, the children are in school. If they have to go online, because as you know, the recent pandemic issue we had to deal with a couple months ago, they were very quick to adjust, and then we do online learning. And my child was in school from 8 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And yet we still see, even with the amount of money we pay into DOE, and granted, we're challenged with this pandemic, but everybody's challenged with it. And yet others have the flexibility to try and figure out how could they be more responsive to deliver on education. DOE has yet to meet that challenge fully, and they are struggling. But we're concerned because our children are struggling as a result of that. So at this point, hearing all the concerns and arguments, I hope, Madam Chair, at least from the discussion tonight and the testimony, perhaps that'll open the door to a roundtable discussion so that there can be further input from interested parties on this issue. But at this time, with what I know and how I started to support charter schools, I don't think that requiring this type of certification is necessary at this point, or that we should impose this on the charter schools. As long as they're delivering and educating the children, and their children are coming out with the test scores that we expect and they continue to improve, that's what I want to see. If we start dictating how they're going to do that, then I think we're going to stifle their ability to do exactly what they're doing now. And we're not going to get that level of production and improvement that we want to see. Because while DOE has been around for many years, we also see the challenges and limitations that come with such a huge infrastructure that does not and is unable to respond to the needs as they happen. So that's the position that I have with regards to this bill. I appreciate you allowing me the extended opportunity to comment. But at this point, I would not be able to be supportive of this bill with the concerns that have been raised, but I'm definitely open to more further discussion should the committee desire to have further meetings with regards to this issue before this bill moves forward. With that, Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you very much, Senator Brown. I think there's a lot of good discussion here tonight. You're right. And where we go from here is extremely important. So I appreciate everyone's contributions to this discussion as we focus on qualifications versus effectiveness in the classroom, I think. And I wanted to just ask some questions to the Certification Commission. Mrs. Abadai, if you can help us understand the process of becoming a certified teacher. How long does the process of acquiring certification take for our teachers?
There are different levels of certification. As soon as a person would like to apply for certification, they can go in as an emergency certified, as some of the people mentioned earlier. That means that they are working on certification. We have initial certification, which is once the person has completed their training. And again, we don't do the training. That is from the university that they are attending. They are the ones who provide the training on classroom management and methods and content areas. We then provide the initial certification for them, which is a 2 or 3 year period. That is then followed by professional certification and by master certification. The professional is for a 5-year period. Master certification is for a 10-year period. In order to renew the certification, the teachers must show that they have been participating in professional growth activities. So it's not like the way some people perhaps went through originally where you had to have courses. We are saying that there's so much more to school than just taking a course at the university or taking a course online. It's all the activities that the teachers are doing in the class. It's the participation in accreditation meetings. It is the work that they do with the students. So the teachers are able to keep a record of that. And depending on which level of certification, they are providing us with evidence of 90 hours or 120 hours of that during the years that they are holding the certification. So in a 5-year period, they would give us 90 hours, indicating that they have been participating in a variety of things like coaching, meetings, providing work on accreditation, working on school committees, etc. Because all of those are very, very important. And the professional development is more than just taking a class. So that's the change that we had made a few years ago. If they're going for the master program, then it's 120 hours that they need to show during that period. And again, that's for all educators. They need to continuously show that they are growing and improving. And they could be doing that, working with students, working with professional development, working with committees. But when they start out with the emergency, that is just a temporary certificate. We expect them to move into initial, and then they have a 3-year period to take care of whatever requirements they have not yet made in order to move into professional.
Okay. And what is the process of the emergency certification, and are those allowed to be renewed?
Emergency certification is not a renewable certification. All of the others are able to be renewed, but emergency is simply that, it is emergency. But we have extended it so that it's not a 1-year period, they have 2-year period. So we have made changes from the old system that did exist with the Department of Education. And again, we're not part of the Department of Education, we're not part of School of Education, we are a separate entity. And so we made adjustments to try to address the teachers' needs. So they would have 2 years under emergency that they would be able to get whatever requirements completed that they might not have finished. And again, with initial that follows after that, that is a 3-year period following that.
And is the Certification Commission able to change its rules to allow for emergency certifications to be renewed, or perhaps create a new category for teachers within the charter schools to receive certification?
If the teachers in the charter schools are going to go towards certification, right now they don't have certification. They could always wait until they're closer to that time period before applying, because nothing is stopping them from being hired. So we have nothing to do with the hiring process. We have nothing to do with deciding if a teacher is going to be working in a school. That is from the management side. So if a teacher wanted to continue to teach in the charter school and perhaps work on certification, I would say they continue to work on certification, and when they are closer to completing that program, and at the University of Guam, there is a Master's of Arts in Teaching, which is a 1.5-year program that is occurring with cohorts on a regular basis. In a 1.5 years, they could have their certification. And when they get close to that point, that's when they should really apply. But I would not say they would start applying at the beginning, that you would want to wait until you get closer to that for that purpose.
Okay, but the Certification Commission does have the authority to set a new category or to allow for renewals of emergency certifications. That is under your authority.
Under our authority, we do have the option to provide extensions If someone contacts us and they provide us with the reasons they were unable to complete it, we have a committee that gets together to evaluate the extension request. And we do provide extensions for all of the certificates, especially with this current pandemic situation. We provided extensions to everyone who was going to be having their certificate expire at this time because we knew they were not able to take the courses. So yes, we are able to provide extensions. We are able to make adjustments to content area. I know that Dr. Flores mentioned the idea of content being a consideration. We are able to add content and we are able to have extensions put onto basic teaching certificates, not extensions, excuse me, but they can add something onto it saying that this is their current content area. It's a very general statement. It's not saying we are teaching math 101, it's just saying you are eligible to teach.
Okay, so it seems like there is a lot of room here for discussion with the commission to figure out some alternative solutions perhaps to this bill. But I wanted to ask you also, what are some of the barriers for teachers receiving their certification, past the emergency certification, anything aside from the education component and having the core foundation in education, what are some other barriers for them? I didn't hear any mention of the praxis test, but I know that that's kind of a big barrier for some. Can you speak to that?
The praxis is one of the requirements, and I know that if you are going to the University of Guam now, they require the praxis test to be completed before even graduation, so that once they graduate, they have already completed the praxis requirements. There are workshops that are given to help teachers. There are online courses that are available to help teachers in order to pass the praxis. We are able to give an extension if someone is for some reason not able to take the test, which we had to do because of the inability to get testing sites. We make whatever adjustments we need to in order to assist the teachers for that. But it is still a requirement to pass the praxis, which is like a basic SAT test.
Okay, thank you very much. And can you go over the cost once again for certification? I know you mentioned a couple of numbers in your opening testimony, but can you go over the cost for each certification for us?
It's $10 a year. So if you have a 5-year certification, then that's 5 times 10. If you have a 10-year certification for master's, that's 10 times 10. So basically, it's simply $10 a year, whatever the certification is. So if you're getting an initial certification, that's 3 years. So that's 3 times 10. So
Okay.
we just made it sort of simple, and it's just $10 a year. And that way you just figure out if it's initial, professional, or master.
Okay, thank you very much. And does the Guam Department of Education carry the burden of that cost for their teachers at all?
We have nothing to do with the Guam Department of Education, so I don't know if they do that. We are simply collecting the money from the teachers. I'm going to assume they do not, but again, I am not involved in that process. We are not involved in that process.
So you are paid directly by teachers seeking certification?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Those are all the questions I have right now. Representative LeBang, did you want to make a comment?
Oh yeah, I just want to elaborate more in the terms of praxis, because I've taken praxis recently, because so there's like 2 praxises, the praxis core, which includes reading, writing, and math. So I think, correct me, Dr. Abade, if I'm wrong, if you pass that, you can apply for emergency certification.
Yes, if you pass praxis 1, you are able to get emergency certification. And then the praxis 2 focuses on the pedagogy, and that deals with specific ideas of your content area.
So that's the PLT, which is the principle of learning and teaching, and then plus the content that you're gonna teach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Representative LeBang, and thank you, Mrs. Abade, for that information. I will make a recommendation to the chairperson, Senator Telena Nelson, for us to continue perhaps with a roundtable discussion with the Certification Commission and with stakeholders from our charter schools, as well as the Guam Youth Congress. So I want to thank everyone for your input today, and we will make announcements once those meetings are confirmed. So with that, Bill number 161-36 has been duly heard, and we will continue to accept testimonies to the office of Senator Telena Nelson. We will now move on to Bill number 160-36. This is the last item on our agenda tonight. This is a bill to establish minimum qualifications for the Guam State Historic Preservation Officer position. This bill was introduced by the Committee on Air Transportation, Parks, Tourism, Higher Education, and the Advancement of Women, Youth, and Senior Citizens at the request of the Guam Youth Congress. I'd like to now invite Representative Nolan Flores from the Guam Youth Congress to provide an opening statement on this bill.
Zusmasi, Senator Shelton, and for staying back after hours along with everyone else to ensure that our bills are heard. Hafaday, Senator Shelton, Senator Taitagui, Senator Brown, and others present, Guahusi Nolan Flores, Zusmasi para ungogoti estina hiningo publiku, pagod ani estina oportunidad. Who agradeci sinapotin mizu para itatsu Kongressun Manhoben Guåhan para ta protehi para ta susteni dan para ta natlatla todo iguinahata giislata. I'm here today to provide some insight into Bill 160 to express my support for the measure and to further express the need for reform in the way our local government engages with the military in regard to our cultural and ancestral remains. I, along with several co-sponsors, originally introduced Bill 160 in the Guam Youth Congress, where it received unanimous support in response to the lack of transparency surrounding ancient Chamorro burials found at Camp Blas in April of this year. On April 5th, 2021, the Pacific Daily News reported that the Office of the SHPO was unable to release information on these burials due to the release of such information being, quote, a Department of Defense decision. It was reported, however, in that same article that Camp Blas deferred to the SHPO to, quote, deem it appropriate to publicly release preliminary information. We as youth were confused at this ball tossing, especially with the matter as critical as our ancestral remains. On April 9th, 2021, after much community outcry and at the urging of Imagat Haga, the acting SHPO finally released a preliminary report detailing the 12 burials found at Camp Blas. As these events unfolded and continue to unfold today, especially with Camp Blas construction moving full speed ahead, there is on the military's part a blatant lack of transparency and a clear disregard for our demands as an island and as the indigenous people of Guam. Although our territorial status makes it so that this relationship will always be fundamentally flawed, being based in consultation but not consent, our local government must not and cannot be complicit in the military's denial of information that is ours and only ours. As such, there are steps we can take now, despite our colonial status, to empower the SHPO's office as our primary liaison to the federal government for all historic and cultural resources, and to put up a concerted fight to protect the resources that tell our past stories, inform our present identities, and guide our future. Bill 160 is therefore the solution that we propose to empower the office of the SHPO and the GHPO and ensure that whoever leads the office is not only knowledgeable and well-versed in historic preservation, but all able to be entrusted by our community to advocate our interests. Firstly, the bill requires that the position holder possess at minimum a bachelor's degree in history or a closely related field, and also possess either 2 years of full-time experience at an academic institution, historical organization or agency, museum, or other professional institution, or substantial academic contribution in relevant fields. Secondly, the bill proactively legislates against conflicts of interest by barring any position holder from serving concurrently in any federal employment position or from serving within 2 years prior to their appointment as a SHPO. And lastly, the bill also transfers appointing authority of the SHPO from the Director of the Department of Parks and Rec to Imagat Haga and Guåhan with the advice and consent of LIHESLATURAN Guåhan to bring the SHPO closer to the people they serve and to better facilitate transparency and accountability. In drafting and passing this bill and in supporting it today, I recognize it is one of many solutions that can address our island's need for greater transparency from and advocacy by the SHPO and our local government in their duty to protect our cultural resources. I therefore urge this body and all of our leaders to continue finding ways to further this duty, whether it be passing this bill, providing more resources to the SHPO's office, reconsidering the problematic nature of the current programmatic agreement, and or providing greater public input and involvement in historic preservation processes. As I stated earlier, although resolving our political status is our greatest need, we must take steps in the interim to protect these resources, because just as our lands and waters are a source of life for our people, so too are our historical resources, a source of our identity and our collective well-being. Sidos Masi.
Sidos Masi, Representative Flores. I'd like to give my colleagues an opportunity to ask any questions or give their comments on this bill. I know there are some individuals who've testified, but I don't see anyone else online in the Zoom room, so perhaps they will be sending their testimonies in. And I believe we did receive some testimony. We have testimony from the Guam Preservation Trust. We have a testimony from Mr. Lott. And we have testimony from Maria Jesus. Again, Mr. Joe Kanata from the Guam Preservation Trust. I believe that's all we've received so far. Oh, and also from Tierra Napati, professor from the University of California and resident of Mongmong. Colleagues, all of those testimonies are provided for you in the Google Drive. I'd like to begin with Senator Brown, if you have any questions for Representative Flores.
You know, I don't know yet if I have questions. I mean, I see the angle of the bill with the intent. I think there's so much more to the state preservation office than the military issue, because certainly our historic resources are impacted by a whole bunch of factors, including private development that has occurred that has gotten nowhere near the level of scrutiny and review that's impacted natural resources. And I'm also a bit questioning with the way this is written, obviously will impact the existing occupant of that position with regards to military service. This whole adjustment seems to be focused on the military. And I just wanted to ask our Mr. Flores if that's really the intent. Is this specifically what the agenda is with regards to this proposal? Because there's so much broader issues with regards to protecting our natural resources. And I'm also a bit concerned that we're going to have a position that's going to be appointed by the governor, confirmed by the legislature to answer to the governor, and then make it what appears to be a classified position for the civil service to determine what the qualifications and wage standards are going to be. I'm not so sure how this fits into the existing structure of government, or do I want to classify someone that's going to be directly answerable to the governor? So yeah, I'm a little bit confused with regards to this, and perhaps you could provide some clarification here, because to me, there's a broader issue than simply what looks like and interpreted as really more anti-military with regards to the approach than the whole broader issue of how do we address preservation of all our resources, regardless of who's impacting them.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Brown. It's very much a measure that considers the SHPO's role in not only the military, but also any development that happens on island, because I know the SHPO, the GHPO, but we commonly just refer to it as a SHPO, right, is responsible for any development in which cultural resources are affected. And I think in writing the bill, I recognize also that the SHPO is really inundated and the resources aren't necessarily there. I know SHPO, the current SHPO, Pat Lujan, has said on occasion that the SHPO needs more resources. They need more staff. I believe they only have a few archaeologists right now, a few people certified to actually conduct that work. So yes, the military aspect is just one part of it, but it's a very huge part. And I wouldn't phrase the bill so much as being anti-military and more pro our resources, our cultural resources. Does that answer the question, Senator Brown?
Well, I think that probably maybe could revise the language so that that's really what it's more reflective of, because I mean, we all have our issues with regards to any damage to our natural resource and growth and development. And my observation has been time and time again that we don't provide the same scrutiny for other projects on Guam. I mean, look at the most recent construction of these solar panels in Marbo that impacted, the Marbo Cave issue. I don't know, were there any historic issues? We heard nothing with regards to that. We hear very little public concern raised when other type of entities are actually involved in impacting our natural resources and our historical resources. So I think that's something we need to be mindful of. I have a question of concern, not directly to you, but the structure that's being set up, that somehow this is going to be more effective by having this position, unless it's an unclassified position. I mean, that's normally how it is. The governor can appoint for heads of department and agencies, and then the legislature confirms, and the life of that appointment pretty much extends to the term of that administration. But to have this individual in the classified service directly responding to the governor as if they were a cabinet position, I don't necessarily know how that's supposed to work out, because politics has a way of penetrating into almost anything and everything in this government, regardless of what we'd like to think that those barriers exist. And I don't necessarily know that I want to put this position to even be in a more political position, rather than where we're going to have a qualified individual whose primary focus is going to be how to address the proper conservation or preservation of natural resources, regardless, and historical resources, regardless of who's impacting them. So the structure that's being proposed, I really am not sure that I'm an advocate of this, because I really don't know how it's going to work. And I'm not naive enough, having been at this business long enough, to think that, oh, somehow that this is going to be isolated from that. This whole process has become very political. So that I just have to put forth are my reservations so far in this bill. I think we all want to protect our resources, and if they cannot be, or they have to be moved or relocated because of growth and development, and that could impact any of us. We could be wanting to build a home, a school, a hospital. And I think we need to standardize how we do that. But if we're thinking it's only the military, I mean, the scrutiny of what they have to do and what they have to perform, to me, is certainly far more than I've seen on private development projects that this government has a responsibility to also oversee. And I think we need to balance that perspective. I'll give you an example. Look at the development here in my neighborhood in Pago Bay. I mean, we had ancestral remains, I think there were like 11 or 12 of them, that were unearthed as a result of that development. I mean, almost 15 years later, I don't even know if those remains have been reinterred. Why aren't we protesting that? Why is that? Well, we certainly, as a group, when I used to be, I had to step down in my role as a member of Safe Southern Guam when I ran for the legislature. But why isn't that being given the same weight and attention? If that was a military base, I'm sure we'd be out there screaming and yelling, but it's the same ancestral remain that should be treated respectfully, that should have been reinterred, which was what was required by the Land Use Commission when they authorized the project. And yet years later, nothing. Very little has been done by our government to address proper enforcement of that. And that's only one of how many. So I'm just saying there's a bigger, broader picture and issue out there of how these resources are being treated, managed, overseen, than simply this issue. And it's definitely a very important issue of what's happening right now with the current base construction. I'm not minimizing that in any way. I think we need to be as responsible with that as anything else. But I just think the focus and the language here really doesn't show me that. It shows me very much, because the focus is military. That's what I see. And I think we need to broaden that perspective, because if we truly believe in this, because I'm not, I mean, there are issues certainly I think the military needs to be held responsible for, but I'm not by nature, being a child of a military family, anti-military. And I think many of our people on Guam that have served and are serving in the United States Armed Forces are not anti-military, nor as many members of our Guard that are serving. But definitely, I think that the view of that and taking this position with how the language is structured here gives me that impression in reading it. And I think we need to broaden those statements so that regardless, as I mentioned earlier, of who's impacting our resources, the consequence of review should be even, should be equal, should be consistent. But politicizing further the appointment of this position, because when a governor appoints, it's a political appointment. Even judges that are appointed are political appointments. They are creatures of the political process. I'm just a little concerned about further politicizing this position. So I don't know how you're going to take politics out of that if it's a direct appointment and then confirmation by the legislature, and then somehow they're sort of classified. I don't quite understand or know if there's something even similar to this in the government of Guam that exists, but I'm certainly open to hearing further awareness or testimony on this issue, but I simply wanted to relay my initial observations in reviewing this bill. With that, Madam Chair, thank you very much for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you very much, Senator Brown. Senator Titagui, do you have any questions or comments?
I promise it won't be too long. I know it's getting late, Madam Chair. So half a day, Nolan, si dus masi. You're for even, putting something out like this, trying to do something, because we know there's something wrong out there with regards to, ensuring there's transparency, accountability for our historical remains, our heritage, our culture. And you've been one such person, very proud that you're keeping the Chamorro language alive too as well. So, but I totally share the same concerns as Senator Brown. She hit it on the nose on every aspect of the words, from the appointment position to can we do this? The issue of not really, paying attention to what happens outside the gate too. A lot of those concerns I share with her. One of the things that I read in the testimony, as well as a question that I had was, first, before I forget, Nolan, on page 3, line 8, the GCA citation is wrong. Okay, so you need to review that, okay, and make that a correction, okay? It's on line 8, page 3. Okay, and moving forward is a testimony by David Lotz, making a comment. First, the Attorney General of Guam, the Guam Attorney General's opinion on June 28, 2010, which was used as an attempt to invalidate Guam's codes regarding deciding that the governor of Guam has complete authority under 16 U.S.C. 470A to appoint the State Historical Preservation Officer for federal purposes. Well, number one, have you had the opportunity to read that Attorney General's opinion from 2008? I'm sorry, June 28, 2010. If you haven't, it might be worth reading, and seeing what they have on a federal side. Secondly, well, have you had a chance to read it, Nolan, though? Have you had it?
Is that the AG's opinion that the governor chooses who the SHPO is?
Right, June 28, 2010.
Yes, I believe so. I believe so.
Because there's something in here on the 16 U.S.C. 470A, that brings to question, and I'm gonna look up that statute well. But proposed in 773032 of the bill prohibits the Guam Historical Preservation Officer from, concurrently serving any federal position, including active, reserve, or guard enlistment service in the U.S. Armed Forces. Can the legislature legally implement such restrictions on military service members? Or likewise prohibit an employee from joining the military if he or she chooses to serve our country in a different capacity, in additional capacity. So this is a huge question, on some of the things that you placed in the bill that needs. I don't think we can do that, But I understand your intent. I truly do, Nolan. I've attended, as well as Senator Brown, we've attended, meetings with the military on the burial grounds and looked at all their maps that they had, asked lots of questions, concerns. We've also attended the annual meeting that they provide us too with what's going on in the military buildup and the grounds that they're digging up. We want to know these questions just as much as you. And I want you to know, Nolan, that we are staying on top of this. We truly are. But as far as this legislation is concerned, my biggest issue is the appointment of a governor to be a classified employee. That's a huge, in my book, no. Everyone who's a classified employee should go through the merit system in the government of Guam. They apply like everyone else who becomes certified. That's important. Now, if you put that in the legislation, maybe I might even support that. Of course, clean up some other areas, but it's a work in progress, and I know your intentions. And that being said, maybe we can sit down and talk about this with the three of us here that were Senator Brown and Senator Shelton and yourself and myself to talk about this further. But I appreciate the time again. Sorry, I went over a little bit more. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity. Good night, Nolan. Sijus Masi.
Sijus Masi, Senator Tidegui. Nolan, Representative Flores, Sijus Masi, for your testimony. I wanted to ask you one question. I think we spoke enough tonight about the provision of the bill not allow anyone serving in active duty in the reserve or the guard or in any military capacity in the armed forces. We went over that quite a bit, but I wanted to ask you, the provision in the bill, section 77303.2, this sets a 90-day acting capacity limit for the historic preservation officer. So if there's no action by the legislature within 90 days to confirm this position, there's not necessarily a remedy provided in the bill. Is there, or can you tell me if there is, if I'm missing it? What will happen if we go beyond this 90 days in an acting capacity?
Thank you, Senator Shelton. Yeah, the bill doesn't say what would happen after the 90 days. I believe we just put that measure in there so that an acting position holder wouldn't be able to be considered, de facto the full position holder for more than 90 days.
All right. Thank you so much. If anyone has any last comment or question before we close? No? All righty. Okay, so.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to ask a real quick question with regards to the authority or oversight of the Guam Preservation Historic Officer on page 5, line 14, to oversee the or serve as executive director of the Guam Preservation Trust Fund. I just want to get clarification. What exactly is that fund? I mean, we're aware of the Guam Preservation Trust, but that's a separate entity. So do we know what this oversight is as executive director of the Guam Preservation Trust Fund that the Guam Historic Preservation Officer would oversee and serve in that capacity?
If I may, Senator Shelton? Oh, yes. Senator Brown, I believe that is just a carryover from the original GCA, so I'm not sure exactly. I'm sure.
Okay, well, even if it is a carryover, I'd be curious to find out exactly what role, because of course we have the Guam Preservation Trust as a separate entity. So I don't have knowledge of this Guam Historic Preservation Officer serving as the executive director. I don't know if it's one and the same or what exactly does this oversee, but I just like to pose that question so that we can find out and get clarity with regards to it. But thank you very much for responding to my inquiry. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Brown. Thank you very much, Senator Tidegui and Representative Flores for sticking with us tonight throughout this hearing. There being no more questions, Bill number 160-36 has been duly heard, and we will continue to accept testimony to the office of Senator Telena Nelson. You can email your testimony to Senator T.C. Nelson at guamlegislature.org or deliver it to the office of Senator Telena Nelson at Suite 202A 173 Aspinall Avenue, Hagåtña, Guam 96910. A recording of today's hearing will also be available on YouTube at Guam Legislature Media. This concludes our virtual public hearing. The time now is 6:47 p.m. I'd like to thank everyone for their time. Please be safe and take care. This hearing is adjourned. Adios.